Very good afternoon to you and welcome to Discourse on Global Television. I'm your host, Priscilla Obasi. The 2025 Anambra elections have actually come and gone, but the conversations are not over. As a matter of fact, they are far from over. From the political undercurrent that shaped the campaigns to the voter turnout, the party strategies, and even the eventual results, the elections have once again puts the spotlight on Nigeria's evolving democratic culture. Many observers believe the Anambra polls are a reflection of the larger political mood of the Southeast and perhaps a preview of what to expect in the build-up to 2027. But beyond who won or who lost, the real question is, what does this election tell us about governance, voter confidence, and Nigeria's democratic maturity? Joining us to unpack this is Mr. Emmanuel Ozoemena, a public policy consultant and governance analyst with years of experience in election observation and civic engagement. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla.
Okay, let's
and
get
thank you, audience.
Okay, thank you for being here. Let's get to the heart of today's conversation. Let me start with this. How would you assess the overall conduct of the just concluded Anambra elections?
Well, I think the Anambra election came with it's a mixed bag, so to speak. Mixed bag in the sense that we saw what looked like, well, you could say a quick resolution of election processes in terms of collation. I mean, before we could wake up in the morning, they've told us, oh, this is the winner, and everybody clapped. But beyond the clapping, we saw a new dimension to what has become one of the biggest, you could say, drawback of elections and democracy in Nigeria, which is vote buying. We saw it became very, very prominent to the extent that even the candidates are lamenting big, key political actors in the state. I say, look, how did we get to this point? And for me, I feel very sad personally because Anambra is very close to my heart. I spent nearly 30 years there growing up. So it's a place I've called home and still call home today. So for me, it's a very low point to what Anambra represents. I mean, if you saw the video streaming on social media around vote buying, I felt very, very disgusted. It was despicable. But even at that, we now have the incumbent governor, Charles Soludo, Chukwuma Charles Soludo, who has just been re-elected as declared by the INEC as the winner of the election. So he has his second tenure, but again, it's a victory that is coming at a cost of a new oddity to electoral process in Nigeria. I mean, you saw reports of EFCC and security agencies arresting people with bags of money. So for me, it's a sad point for democracy.
Okay, there were talks about, this elections being the litmus test for the new INEC chairman that was just, inaugurated. What do you think? Do you think expectations were met?
Well, a litmus test in what sense? The point is that when people use terms litmus tests, to begin with, the size of Anambra is second to the, just before Lagos in terms of size, land area.
Okay.
Is barely a little bit over 4,000 square miles. So if you do an election in a place like Niger, Borno, perhaps Kano, where you have a huge landmass and number of people, you will be talking about litmus test. Like when I read, the police, the security agencies say we are mobilizing 42,000, 45,000 men to go and conduct an election. In my head, I'm asking, in this state of insecurity, it is a stage where you have insecurity across the country that has attracted the attention of U.S. president and other members of international community. You are mobilizing such a number to go and do an election where you have 2.8 million voters. I ask myself, what type of priorities do we have? For me, it's not about litmus test. Ahead of the voting, in my heart, I had done some sort of an assessment. One of the things, like I told friends who cared or who came around or who sought my views, was that, look, there are no contestation in that election because the normal contestation environment for political contest was absent. Take, for instance, PDP as a party, before now, the internal contestation for the ticket of PDP was toughest. Now they had no candidates. In fact, the truth is that PDP had no candidates. They had to find a way of willingly asking somebody to, please, can you fly our ticket? And the candidate ended up as their flag bearer. And from the result released by INEC, you will know that PDP was not in that election. And then you could check the result as released by INEC. You know, it shows that it was a two-horse race. And two-horse race, the candidate of the other party, or the closest candidate to the winner, I didn't really see him as being in the race. Having, like I said, I've lived in Anambra State. I spent close to almost 30 years there. So I understand the dynamics of politics there. It's a place I call a home. I mean, half of the people who are running the system as of today are people I grew up with. So I understand the area very. So for me, it can be a litmus test. And again, there's one mistake I have seen people make. People who don't know Anambra or the voting pattern of behavior of the state are saying, look, that the leader of the former presidential candidate of Labour Party, his party didn't win. So those things are actually very inconsequential. In 2021 election, by the time the elections were over, and then the presidential election of 2023 came, you saw the entire dynamics change. So for each election, because it's an off-circular election, so people pay attention to it. So much creates tension because there are no other elections happening elsewhere. So everybody focuses on Anambra election. And so nobody, in terms of analysts, who, in fact, people I respect, they are using it as a yardstick for what will happen in possibly in 2027. No, there are no correlation at all from records in the past.
Okay. Yeah. So comparing this year's elections to what happened 4 years ago in Anambra State, what would you say became better? Do we say it's nothing changed, or can we say things even got worse?
Perhaps the only thing that I could possibly point now is that first, in 4 years ago, we had a more lower voters turnout.
Okay.
Yeah, it improved by about 10% this time around, even though it's still low.
Okay.
You have 21.4% voters turnout.
Wow.
So which shows you that a lot of people say, look, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay away. Because the winner in the last election was won by, I think, had about 300,000 votes. Okay. Now it's been increased a little bit to 422,000 votes.
Okay.
So that shows you, that indicates, is an indication that more people turned out. Because one of the things that had happened in the Southeast, I mean, I need to point this out, is that with each election, lesser number of people participate. Either because they think people who have been elected do not represent them or are not accountable, or are not responsible. So it drives, so you keep having lower voters turnout with each election. But there seems to be a bit of improvement in that of Anambra. Do we say, even though I have not conducted a scientific data collection to find out why that improvement? Could it be because they saw it's like one of the candidates say, business of vote buying? Because I heard a leading political actor, Mr. Peter Obi precisely, saying that people paid between 10,000, 20,000, and 30,000. So for some, they would have seen it as a very lucrative. I have a voter's card. Why don't I go collect this money? After all, these guys are not going to come back until the next 4 years. But again, that's a very low point of participating in democracy. It shouldn't be because of the monetary inducement. I think Nigeria stakeholders must find a way to it. Nigeria is not the only country anywhere that goes through this crisis. If you study vote buying, it's become, especially in developing countries, across Africa, in Asia, and Latin America, it's a huge concern of anyone who works within the governance system, election, who monitors election management system. It's a huge concern. Can we curb it? I think we can. If people are held accountable, if people who were caught in camera, I mean, these people, they've shown us who were carrying huge swaths of money. Would there be an accountability process to ensure, use them and set an example? I don't know whether it will happen. Because naturally, politics. Yeah. But I think it's not, so the optics is not right.
When we talk about vote buying, was it a general action? Was it something that every party, indulged in? Or was it just a particular party that was, seen doing this?
Now, two things happen. If you see, there have been those who came out to say, look, I condemn this, vote buying. The first question is you must have a willing buyer and a willing seller, because it takes two to tango. So in this case, but I think it's left for the security agencies, for instance, the people they caught, whose agent did we take in? Yeah, I mean, from their confessions, they would have a party affiliation. Yeah. Are we going to have access to those type of information? Are they likely going to make it public and say, this man belongs to party A or party B or party Z? That accountability process, can we have it?
Oh, okay, it wasn't made known to the public.
Well, at the moment, it's still, I mean, security agencies will say we are investigating. Yeah, but the point is that it's not a good optics for when you are having a competitive democracy. That people are, because it means in future people wouldn't even bother to perhaps to go and to campaign. Just keep all the money you need to keep. On the election day, you bring it out instead of going around, organizing town hall, trying to woo the people, trying to sell your manifesto. Just keep all the money. On the election day, you go to the bank, roll it out, and distribute to people and see how many people you're able to buy. So that's the danger. So you now have government without ideology, you have elections without manifesto and all that. That would be the possible negative impact of such a whatever. And you now have elected officials without accountability. Because the man will tell you, well, I bought it, I paid you. This is a transactional process. So you can't hold him to account because he's not owing you anything. Elections are built on trust. We elect Mr. A, he goes there and will be able to deliver his programs that he told us he's going to deliver. But if it's a transactional process, Mr. A will tell you, well, Mr. Emmanuel, I'm not owing you. Didn't I pay you to vote for me? I bought this. I mean, but if he had earned my trust, I can tell him, look, Mr. Governor, you're not doing well. This is what you should do, in my view. And other stakeholders, we can pile up pressures on him. But if he knows, look, anytime I want to run for an election, I can always buy it. So that's
There's
in
no
fact, it's a
accountability.
crisis. It's an endless crisis for governance, for accountability, and for democracy.
Interesting. This is a personal question. Now, the vote buying, we cannot clearly say that it came from a particular party, as you know, all of that is not known. We just heard that some people were caught vote buying. So we can as well assume that it came from all parties. But then I want to ask, do you think the election, the outcome of the election reflects the will of the people? Because prior to the elections, we heard people coming out to say APC is going to take over the state, you know, due to the fact that they are almost dominated in almost all states in Nigeria. So to see APGA come out victorious, is it basically because, I don't know, what do you think about the outcome?
Okay, it's a very simple thing. I knew from the go that the APC would not win Anambra State in this election.
Why?
But I did an assessment of their flag bearers.
Okay.
That's number one. Like I told you, at a point I knew, look, I would have suggested the election, we create a special, if you like, call it special case, that, look, why do we waste these public funds for election? Why don't we simply say, look, let's put it
back.
in infrastructure.
Yes.
Because it looks like not a contestable election. And when election is not contestable, it may not be because of that the incumbent is doing fantastic.
Yeah.
It could be also, there's something politicians do. Ahead of the election, you say, we have 18 political parties. So it's easy to go across 18 political parties and fill in your accolades. Feed them in,
okay,
and then when you feed them in, you create a no contest situation. In that case, it becomes an easy ride.
Yeah.
It's like how people rig football, you know, what they call match fixing. That's the way they fix match. Just go ahead and
pair with a strong, with
Yeah.
not too strong.
not too strong candidate. Because I looked at the entire thing, I didn't see strong candidates.
Okay.
Like I told you, the ticket of PDP before now, it's very hardly strong. But you now see PDP almost not there. And so APC becomes that alternative opposition party. I have people on both sides. People on the current administration in Anambra, people in the APC. I have friends, people I grew up with, I mean childhood friends across the whole parties. In fact, some of them called me ahead of time and say, what's my view? I say, look, why don't we collapse the funding budget meant for this and put it in infrastructure? Because for me, it was a waste of time. Not that the incumbent is doing so fantastic or whatever, like they will claim. No, that's not the issue. But the issue is that there were nobody in the field contesting, so it became an uncontested election. So perhaps that could be a theory that scholars should look at. Uncontested elections,
Uncontested elections in Nigeria and its states. Well, let's go to INEC right now. I earlier mentioned that this was a litmus test, which you have, said it isn't, because it looks like a walk away. It's not something that should be called a test in any way. But we've seen them talk about beavers and technology. Do you think it was well implemented in the?
Yeah, well, in terms of upload, very well. But they also had a problem. There were complaints. I think one in Ihiala, I saw the picture, the videos flying on social media when somebody came to a polling unit in Ihiala local government and say, where is the result? And they had no result sheet. So you can imagine releasing voters card, people are voting, and the result sheet is not there. So why? Because the rules are very simple. You must have everything in place. Like I said, these are all verifiable complaints, but they are on social media. Because that day, I was trying to get updates from home to ensure, just to find out what is going on. So in cases where people are voting and the result sheet, I think from 08 or something like that, it's not there. So what are you going to use?
E8, right?
Yeah. What are you going to use to record? But in terms of INEC uploading whatever is the result, or whatever the party agents have finally submitted.
Yeah.
You know why I say this?
Why?
I say this because I remember a certain candidate some years ago. I worked for a governorship candidate in one of the states. On the election day, what we realized was that you call people you have trained as your party agent. You call them, they say wrong number. Obviously, somebody has got to buy them over. They will turn up at the polling units.
Yeah.
And then somebody say, look, how much are they even paying you? You now say, okay, they're going to pay me 20,000. I say, look, we're going to give you 200,000. Wow. So the guy abandons, puts off his phone and say, when you call him, those who had courage to on their phone, when you call them, they say, no, wrong number.
Wow.
He said, but he said, look, wrong number, my friend, stop disturbing me. So, you know, the politicians devise all kinds of whatever. Yes. In fact, there was one of the candidates, I watched his interview. So they told him you didn't have agents in everywhere. He said, look, I had agents in every polling unit. But what I think would have happened, those agents would have compromised. The guy turns up in the morning on the election day, and then they say, you are wearing party XYZ. Why don't you join us? How much are they paying you? The moment you mention it, they will triple that money. And then because of weaponization of poverty, currently, you know, that politicians use to ensure that they win, the guy abandons a party he came to represent. And so, but in terms of upload of results, I think over almost, they did it well. But we hope that in future elections, especially for presidential elections, because, I mean, in the last election, results were uploaded for House of Reps, for Senate. But when it now came to the critical test, of a presidential election, they now say that, we're unable to upload it. But the point is this, the more we upload results real time, the more we get better. Some years ago, I had someone close to me who traveled out of Nigeria and I had to be involved in an election process, just in an African country. They've adopted electronic voting system. They've adopted, everything is automated. Wow. At voting point, you can sit in your situation room and be seeing the numbers adding up across the country for the presidential election, for Senate. So they have, these things are not rocket science. But our challenge here is, look, the people who are opposed to adopting electronic voting. You know why? These are political actors who are afraid the moment you adopt it will work. Deciding the outcome will be out of their control. In fact, even in e-governance, the moment you adopt e-governance in procurement process, what it simply means, you upload your request for proposals online, people fill in online, you don't have any physical contact. In that case, you just assess people based on their submission. What proposition did a company submit? So in that case, what you're finally doing is you are reducing human contact. And the moment you reduce human contact, you are likely going to do away with corruption. You are going to do away with influencing. You are going to do away with all kinds of, drawbacks that we currently experience. But the political actors who are in a position to pass these enabling, legislations are afraid because they are going to lose control of the process.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what message. It's always better to act fast because these elections was seen to project what 2027 would look like. What are the lapses? What do we need to put in place in order to prepare for 2027, especially as citizens, to avoid whatever happened, whatever the outcome was negatively, if there was any, to avoid any of that happening in 2027? What do citizens need to do at this point? And even INEC, what do they need to do at this point?
Well, we still have, before 2027, we still have two outstanding of secular elections.
Yes, that's the Osun.
We have Ekiti, we have Osun.
Yes.
So the processes are on now. So perhaps what INEC should do to receive whatever feedback is coming from is going to come from citizens, I mean, as we review the outcome of the Anambra election, we have identified that vote buying has taken a new dimension.
Maybe there should be a formal platform for feedback from the,
No, but INEC should have a research. They have a research department because there's a director of research in INEC who should be able to mop the intelligence, the comments, the information that are publicly available, except they are simply playing ostrich. The video evidence are there. Yeah. I mean, so, and I'm sure also they are returning their officers who are on ground to conduct this election would have seen it. Yeah. So they need to take it, study it, and then perhaps begin to think about on how to code for the future election, even if it means for people to wear clothes without pockets so that you don't find anywhere to put money, or people not to carry anything that is anything they can do to ensure that people do not come with money, to distribute during the elections. I heard one of the political actors in Anambra, in fact, a governorship candidate, saying that what they do, people were there, they will write people's name, phone number. I don't know whether they were doing transfer or you now, after voting, you now go at home somewhere and pick up the, but the point is that for me, INEC should keep engaging political actors to tell them, look, you don't need to buy public trust. Public trusts are earned. And anybody who is not ready to earn it should get out of the political space. Yeah, so that's one. Then two, whatever feedback is coming from citizens as a result of the Anambra election, they should be able to take it, tease it, and then know the improvement to do in the processes. Then Ekiti and Osun, I think, will be a bigger litmus test. For INEC, based on public expectations. People expect that in Osun the election should be free, not only free but fair, and also to be seen as transparent. That of Ekiti, the same thing, because the point is that the more we do elections that are open, free, transparent, and believable, when outcomes are acceptable by the actors, the more we have trust in governance,
Okay, so how can regional politics be positioned to reflect development priorities rather than ethnic sentiments?
Well, it all depends. First is that in every country of the world, citizens have aspirations, and aspirations of citizens differ by the realities of their immediate environment. A citizen who is in an area where you have less rainfall in the year, I mean, what decisions should the government in that area be doing is to try to provide irrigation to ensure that people who have anything to do around agriculture have access to water, because water becomes a priority. Then for those who live in a delta region where you have swamp and all that. So you can't be talking about irrigation, because irrigation means nothing to them, because the area is almost flooded for greater part of the year. So it's for people who lead to look at clear priorities of the people they lead and focus on it. Then you are talking about identity politics. Well, can we be able to eliminate identity politics? Because most times, the way even the politicians campaign, the way they try to frame their narrative, frame their messaging, most times they inflame it. They inflame the identity on religion, on tribe, on all kinds of affiliations. So can we control politicians? The only way we might control them is when citizens begin to say, look, well, I'm looking for a competent leader, and these are my criteria for assessing competency. Perhaps the politicians will be discouraged from doing that. But most times, they want to inflame passion, they want to inflame identities, as a way of winning hearts and minds. Because they know in a normal context, they may not have what it takes to win. But can we control them? We can. When citizens begin to say, look, we're looking at competency, citizens should be able to have what we may call irreducible minimum for electing leaders.
Okay. The conversation continues just after this break. Please stay with us. Thank you very much for still being with us. This is Discourse, and we're talking about the Anambra just conducted elections that happened just last week. We're still in the studio with our analyst. He's here to dissect the conversation. If you have been following, you know that we're going somewhere. Sir, let's talk about governance and policy expectations. Now, beyond the politics, what should be, or what should the newly elected government focus on immediately to restore citizens' confidence?
Well, I think the governor-elect of Anambra State, Chukwuma Soludo, is a governance expert. He's an economist. He has held very top-level positions in Nigeria and elsewhere. He's a well-traveled person. I mean, I remember some years ago, he delivered a paper over 20 years ago on how to turn Nigeria into Japan of Africa. And there's another one he delivered on turning Anambra to Japan of Nigeria. So what he actually meant is repositioning the state to become lead in technology, lead in development, lead in human, in human capital development and infrastructure and all that. So his first tenure, has it done so well? I wouldn't say yes. So what he might need to do is to refocus his priorities on some key areas where I think the life of citizens will be better. Make Anambra a livable place. The point is that when someone is in governance, you can just pick a few priority areas, focus on it, run it, have a closure on it, and it becomes a signature project, legacy project that is going to be there for quite a while. He needs to sit up. One of the things he needs to do is to listen less to these court jesters who come around people who are in power and tell them what they want to hear. He should be able to listen to people who tell him the uncomfortable truths and opinions that he also wouldn't want to hear, because they have a way of shaping policy. They have a way of helping a government in power to frame their development agenda. Most times when people disagree with people in leadership, they think, oh, this guy is my enemy, this guy doesn't like me. But the point is that the best form of advice you can get should be from your opponents, because they have a way of looking at it dispassionately. They look at it not with an intention of getting anything in return, but they want to look at it looking to the future, looking at the bigger picture. I think he's got a very big role. He also shouldn't see this as that he has just been reaffirmed, because I saw the dancing, the victory party. I say, this is not worth it, because for me, there wasn't any contestation. If there was no contestation, there's no need to begin to dance, dance yes. That you have won. I mean, for me, there was no contestation. Yeah. From day one, I've remained very consistent that there are nobody in the field I mean, it's an uncontested election. So what he should do is, because in the next 4 years, and 4 years, by the time he gets inaugurated in the next couple of months, and the 4 years will be over. And when that 4 years is over, one of the things is, oh, I would have done this. I would have done that. So what he should do now is have deep reflection and say, what is the state of Anambra when I met it? How do I want to live it? And then how would I want the future generations to remember me? When you travel to big cities across the world, one of the things they will tell you, oh, take you to here and say this infrastructure was done by this person 40, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And they have a way, that's what legacy project actually is. It's not, I mean, some roads that they build in the next rainy season, the thing is washed off. So he should be looking at the big picture. I think he has every capacity to look at that big picture. But if he doesn't look, then history would pass a verdict on him. So he should ask himself, what type of verdict do I want history to pass on me?
Okay, what role should civic education, and youth inclusion play in reshaping the political space?
Well, civic engagement, most of the times when you look around, people who talk about civic engagement or activities that are, termed civic engagement, some of them do not meet that criteria. Okay. The first criteria should be, what do we intend to deliver in terms of, are we trying to to pass on, to mentor people, to imbibe a particular habit? Take, for instance, youth, young people who engage in thuggery, political thuggery. How do we engage them to the point that they realize that, look, if somebody is going to hire you to become a thug, a political thug, ask him, Oga, why don't you bring your children first? Let's see them. Let them take the lead, and we'll follow. Because this type of messaging will be very clear. But most times, the political actors who engage young people and youth to become their thugs, their children are in Europe and America. In secured environment, and they will now put out these young people in front. Ask them, okay, go and bring your children. I know your child, that one in America, bring him back. I mean, you can afford the air ticket. Let him come. Let him lead us. So, because that's another way of making a statement and say, look, we're going to shun getting involved in political thuggery or being recruited and all that. So people should have that decision, that courage of conviction and say, look, I won't get involved. For how much? Like one of the, I listened to one of the political actors in Anambra say, okay, when you collect 30,000 for another 4 years, now calculate it, do it. How many days are you going to have? So what is it worth? So young people should be taught to imbibe positive values. And one of the key actors who should take that lead should be political leaders. Political leaders are actually expected to be models. Modeling on hard work, modeling on inclusion, modeling on truth, modeling on honesty, on integrity. They should take that lead. I mean, and that's another way where we can have the next generation of leaders. In the US, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, if you look at their history of politics, you find out that at one time or the other, they volunteered for a politician's campaign, they volunteered for a politician who is in the Congress, they volunteered for a council member, a councillor. So that's how most of them ended up, honing their career in politics. And most often you end up seeing them on top of their career as also leaders. So if we intend to have the next generation better than the generation we have now of political leaders. We need to be very, very intentional in that engagement.
And what can other states learn from the outcome of Anambra election?
Yeah, the other states should learn that, I mean, we don't need to weaponize poverty. Because when you weaponize poverty, it means at the election you can now dangle a carrot. And normally people will fall for it. But does it help the overall development of the society? It doesn't. Because what it does, it dehumanizes even the courage, even the integrity of the process, even the conscience of the people you lead. And those people, they won't trust you for a long time. Because each time you speak, they say, oh, is it not this one who bought our conscience? Yeah. So let's let's political leaders learn how to build trust, and how to maintain that trust just by doing what they promise to do.
What's that one thing we can do to build stronger accountability between politicians, leaders, elected leaders, and citizens?
Leaders should know that they are, I mean, you look at the concept of servant leadership. Who is a leader? Who is elected? The man who is elected today is holding that position in trust for the people who elected him. Now, in the last few days, we've been talking about sovereignty. Sovereignty, the real definition of sovereignty, the Princeton definition, is the collection of an agreement by the entire people who form a city, a community, a nation. So sovereignty is collectively owned. So what we do in election is we now transfer our personal or our collective sovereignty to a particular individual who we have said, we are electing you to lead us. Not because you are the smartest, not because you are the most educated. We're electing you because it frees us from getting involved in everyday business of governance.
Okay.
So act on our behalf. So that transfer is done. And if that, in fact, that's what J.J. Rousseau called a social contract. So in that social contract, there's an agreement on what the man who is a representative should do on behalf of the people he has represented. Either there's a legislative agenda where the man says, this is what I would do, and people buy into it and expect him to deliver on that. Take, for instance, in the United States, Donald Trump said, I would be strong hand on immigration. And when he got elected, he saw the ferocity he used in pushing his immigration agenda. So each time you ask him, he said, but that's my promise to American people. I told them it will be America first. It will be make America great again. Yeah. So he's going back to his promise. So our leaders should know when they promise, they should be able to keep. And then the people themselves should be able to remind them when they veer off from what was agreed on during the election. I mean, in fact, what I do most often is that when people present their manifesto, I'll photocopy it and keep in a file. And at the end of the day, I'll keep checking. I say, but this man has not done this. So each time I have an opportunity of meeting them, I say, look, Oga, but this is what you promised. We've not seen it. So what happened? Because that was the basis for voting them. So what happens in an election when leaders make those promises and they are unable to fulfill it? In the next election, people should be collectively agree to boot them out. Vote them out through that same process that you vote them in. Because what it does is that the next set of people that are going to come will be more accountable. And then people shouldn't be afraid to speak up either collectively or as individuals. I mean, there's so much you can do. You can write a letter to the editor. You can write a post on the social media. You can write a reminder, even a reminder letter to that office and say, look, Oga, you have not done this. When are we expecting that? But most times you find out what happens is that the moment, for instance, people in National Assembly are inaugurated, they will remain in Abuja and wait till the next election. The next election, the guy shows up and begins to reactivate their contact and say, oh, sorry, this time around, it's going to be different. And because the people don't have a choice most often, or there are no other, in some of the areas is an uncontested election. You say, well, it's only Mr. A we have. Let's send him back. Do you understand? But if you notice again, where you have competitive environment for that position, people who hold that post usually sit up because they know that there are alternatives, alternative candidates who can replace them in the next election. So they work hard.
I personally think that, as Nigerians, we pipe down during gubernatorial elections, basically because we are waiting for a president, of our hearts to come and fix the governors, to fix the local government chairman, and all of that. Does this make sense in any way? Because if we have that right president, I cannot believe that it will drop down to even that councillor, that is being elected. So do we say, okay, let's just fold our hands, let's put all pressure on 2027? Some people might say, okay, let's not get distracted with all of this. Let our focus be 2027. If we can get it right there, we've gotten it all. Do we still encourage them to, that energy that we're using to wait for 2027? Why don't we put it, on these states that are just having their own off-cycle elections? That way, we actually be hopeful that 2027 will actually work in our favor. Else, if we pipe down, as this, off-cycle elections are going on, somehow I feel that it might just mean that 2027 would not be any different.
I think the challenge is this. First, let's look at the structure of Nigeria. The way Nigeria is structured at the moment is defective. We claim to be federal in name, but unitary in practice. Mark, federal in name, but unitary in practice.
Yes.
A federal government is like what you have in the United States. Okay. And you have federal government where you have diversity of identities. Why you do that is to give enough leverage to people at the subnational to be able to work, to be able to deliver results, to be able to be the best they can be for their people. So, but in Nigeria, where it's top to bottom and not bottom top. In the US, for instance, the resources is under the control of the state. Okay. The states have police. The cities, what you may call local government here, have their policing system, and then you have federal policing system. For instance, FBI is a federal level police. Mm-hmm. For instance, let's take a state like New York. Mm-hmm. You have New York State Police, policing system, and you now have City of New York policing system. So, and each of these levels of security, each of them are accountable to the people. Each of them have their clear line of duties clearly defined. There are federal crimes, there are state crimes, and city crimes. So in that case, that's a true reflection of a federal system of government. In terms of resource management, for instance, you saw just like a week ago in New York, they had an election for a mayor. The mayor of New York, the mayoral position in New York is so important that a former governor, Andrew Cuomo, had to come back. He was a secretary of housing and urban development under the administration of Clinton. He has been governor of New York State. He has been a member of the Congress. He came back to become mayor of City of New York. Why? Because it's an important position that he can influence a lot of things. I mean, I had a roommate in the university who, when we left, some years after we left, he became a local government chairman in one of the states in the southeast. And one day he came to Abuja here. So he visited me, so we're having a conversation. He told me we are just errand boys for the governors. So I was laughing. I say, honorable chairman. I say, what is honorable chairman? I said, well, you're executive chairman. He said, there's nothing executive about being a chairman of a local government.
Wow.
So you take orders from the governor. In fact, the governor runs everything up to until the recent Supreme Court judgment that is yet, as at how many months after it's not been implemented. And I can assure you it may never be implemented until after 2027 election. Yeah, so the problem is, how do we practice? What is the type of federal system we practice? Federal system in name, unitary system in implementation or practice. So I think that's that big disconnect. And that big disconnect is the reason why everybody looks to the top. Decisions must flow from the top. An example is this. Currently, for several months now, Osun State, the local government allocation has been put on hold for several months now.
Wow.
Recently, they've been at the Supreme Court seeking for interpretation. But I think a few weeks ago, the Attorney General of the state went and withdrew it. I don't know whether they want to have a political settlement or not. Even the current president, when he was the governor of Lagos State for several years, the then President Olusegun, federal government under Chief Olusegun, stopped the allocation to Lagos on the complaint that they created additional local governments. But the question is this: in a proper federal government, federal system of government, the creation of local government areas is within the purview of states. States should know, what do we want? Do we want to create county? Do we want to create, like in the US, you don't have the same structure for local governments in every state. Some local government took their structure of, some states took their local government structure from Dutch system, those in the states where you have where that is dominated by immigrants from Germany and Dutch. Those who had from London also adopt the same whatever from the UK. New York is just a replication of Yorkshire that is in England. So that's that. So every state looks at what works for them. So can we get back to proper federalism? A true federalism would mean states should control the resources within their domain. But if you look at what is happening now in the last couple of years, each administration tries to strengthen the central governance, tighten it more, whether in taxation, virtually everything. And at the end of the day, so that's why people do not bother about state governors and all that. State governors, what do they control? Each time there's a crisis, say, hold your state accountable. To what extent can you hold a state accountable? But that's the reality.
Well, this is where we draw the curtains. It's been in 1 minute. What is the take home from today's conversation to our audience, our viewers?
No, what we need to do, we need to nip in the bud the monster of vote buying, because it's going to be a frankincense that will consume all of us.
Wow, that is something very important, and I think the INEC as a body needs to really look into this. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Sharing your insights. This is how far we can go on the